there are a couple of things that were really kind of factual, about it. And 5 in particular stand out, and I'm going to talk about that. Hey everyone, welcome to another sit down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. Everything's great on this end. Praise God for that. We always give God all the praise, honor, and glory for all the blessings that we have in this life. And even through these tough times, God is not responsible for this. Tough times. We live in a fallen world and, we got to deal with it. But God has our backs. Anyway, thank you all for subscribing. We really appreciate it. We hope you appreciate the content that we work hard to give you. Our team does their best, and from the comments we get, we know you're enjoying it, so thank you. But please subscribe. You get alerts. You know what's happening. We appreciate it very much. MichaelFranzese.com, my inner circle, and my crew. It is always growing. People are loving it. I wish I can share some of the comments and some of the feelings that people have being in this crew and in my inner circle. They're loving it, and they're getting so much out of it. It's kind of a legacy piece for me. I love what's happening in there. So, hope you do get involved. 50 years ago, The Godfather was produced. It was a groundbreaking film. I will never forget, people. I can tell you, guys in the street, this movie had such an impact on them. They carried themselves differently. Marlon Brando became a hero. Al Pacino became a hero. The Corleones, everybody knew who they were. Even though this was a fictional story, it had a major impact. And it brought kind of a sense of dignity to the mob life. It really did. People looked at guys in that life differently. It really had an impact, and it's amazing how the silver screen can do things like that in reality. But there are some scenes from The Godfather, and by the way, I got to tell you, I've been getting so many calls and opportunities to get involved in things, to promote this 50th anniversary showing of the film. You don't need that. The Godfather is iconic. I mean, people know who it is, and some of the things I'm doing, some other things I did not, but it's great. And it's probably, a lot of people say it was the greatest American film of all time, and it's very possible. Marlon Brando was brilliant. Pacino, everybody was terrific in the movie. We know that. It made careers. It was unbelievable. But what you may not know, even though it was fiction, there are a couple of things that were really kind of factual, about it. And 5 in particular stand out, and I'm going to talk about that. The character that Marlon Brando played, Don Corleone, who is he based upon? We get asked this all the time. He was kind of a composite. Joe Profaci was in the oil business, and Don Corleone was in that business also. Joe Profaci, one of the, original 5 family guys when Luciano broke it up into 5 families and started the commission. He was also kind of like Carlo Gambino, who was very low-key, who didn't want to be ostentatious and be out there. Remember, he wanted to stay out of drugs, just a quiet kind of guy. That's how he portrayed himself in that life. And then, of course, Frank Costello, who was politically very, very strong, who was a business kind of guy, who realized the mob was a business, who realized that drugs were no good for the mob. So he was kind of a composite character, Don Corleone was. And it was very, very interesting to me when I researched and did a little history, and when I sat around in some of the social clubs when The Godfather was made, and I spoke with Joe Colombo prior to that, because you do know what happened. I think I spoke about that, but Joe Colombo absolutely had an impact on that film. He was in touch with Al Ruddy. He was in touch with director Francis Ford Coppola. A lot of things happened. Joe Colombo did have control. He had the word mafia taken out of the film. Going to get to that. Number 2, the casino boss, Moe Greene. He was kind of like based upon the character of Bugsy Siegel. Moe Greene, remember, had Casino Hotel there. Michael Corleone wanted to take it over. They had kind of a dispute. And what happened eventually, Moe Greene gets killed. He gets shot in the eye, if you remember, while he was getting a massage. And of course, you know about Bugsy Siegel. Bugsy Siegel started the Flamingo Hotel. And what happened to Bugsy? Because allegedly there was an overreach. And I'm going to tell you something. That murder was never proven. And I knew somebody very high up in the Beverly Hills Police Department who showed me some of the memorabilia. I saw Bugsy's license and a couple of things that he had on him when he was killed, and the investigation was held. And they never solved the murder. It's an unsolved murder all of these years later. But he was shot in the eye Mo Green was shot in the eye. What happens after Mo Green dies? The Corleones take over the hotel. They took over the casino. What happened with Bugsy Siegel? Well, Bugsy Siegel gets killed. He had started the Flamingo, the oldest casino in Vegas. And what happens? There's a scene afterwards. They go in and they take over the hotel. The mob guys do. So, the Mo Green character was patterned after Bugsy Siegel. Another scene that was based upon real life. Remember when Michael Corleone, he wasn't involved in the life at that point in time, but he was recruited and he volunteered to go in and kill Sollozzo, who was the guy that attempted the assassination on his father, on Don Corleone. He was going in to kill Sollozzo. And what did they do? They found a restaurant. They hid a gun for Michael in the bathroom, if you remember. And what happens? Michael goes into the bathroom. He comes back. He kills Sollozzo. He kills the dirty cop, the crooked cop. Boom, drops the gun, goes out of the restaurant. Well, that scene, I believe, was patterned after Lucky Luciano and Masseria. If you remember in real life, if you ever read about it, Lucky Luciano and Masseria were sitting down in a restaurant having lunch. Lucky Luciano gets up, says, excuses himself, goes into the bathroom. A couple of his guys come in and they kill Masseria right there in the restaurant. So that scene was the scene in The Godfather was kind of patterned after the real life hit with Luciano and Masseria. Another scene that was kind of patterned after real life. After this happens, the hit happens, what does Michael do? He goes to Italy until things cool off, and he's in Sicily. And while he's in Sicily, he falls in love and marries, I think Apollonia, her name was. So he escapes to Sicily. Well, in real life, Vito Genovese, he was being indicted for murder. And rather than face the charges, he skipped town and went to Sicily. There was no deportation at that point in time. Also, Lucky Luciano, he went to Sicily and lived out his life there. He also fell in love with a girl that I think was 20 years his junior and fell in love with her. So that scene where Michael Corleone flees to Italy, again, Vito Genovese did the same thing. Lucky Luciano did the same thing. So again, it was a fiction kind of copying reality, what really happened in The Godfather. Okay, and finally, something I'm very familiar with, because this was my era in the early 70s when The Godfather was being produced and filmed in New York. Joe Colombo, at that point in time, who I was very close with, I was very active in the Italian-American Civil Rights League, picketing the FBI. I saw it as a way to help my dad, attended all the meetings. I was a captain in the league, not a captain in a mob at that point, but a captain in the league, and I was very active. I was with Joey the day that he got assassinated. He got shot at the big Columbus Day rally that we had. But Joe Colombo was very upset because his whole league was about discrimination against Italian Americans. So when he knew The Godfather was being filmed, he didn't really know what was going on there. He wanted to see the script. And he started to do some things, that weren't very nice. Al Ruddy, who was one of the producers, they broke into his car and they stole some of his equipment. They threatened Al Ruddy. Robert Evans, who was the producer, he got a phone call at his house, and this is a real thing, and his wife and daughter, I think, were threatened. Well, that was enough. Al Ruddy didn't want this to go down. He knew that they had to produce this film, and he had to make peace with Joe Colombo if this thing was to go forward. So he sat with Joe Colombo. He gave him a copy of the script. Joe Colombo said, hey, we don't want to hear the word mafia. Joe Colombo was very upset. The whole Italian-American Civil Rights League was about discrimination against Italians. He said there was no mafia, that the FBI made it up. That was the whole thing. Of course, we know that that's not true, but that's what Joe Colombo was preaching at the time. So he didn't want the word mafia in that script, and he had it stricken. Al Ruddy went along. He had to make a concession. And a couple other things. Guys that we knew, guys on the street, were put in as extras and put into the film. Lenny Montana, who was a friend of mine, an associate. He was Luca Brasi in the film, good friend of mine. Him and Jerry Zimmerman, my other associate, were very close friends. We did things together out in the coast later on. Jimmy Kahn, who was certainly very close with Andrew Russo, my capo regime at the time. Carmine Persico's first cousin. He was in the film. I didn't say that it was a favor. Jimmy Kahn was terrific in that movie. He deserved to be in that part. But I'm just saying, we got certain concessions. So there was reality in that film based upon what Joe Colombo was able to accomplish. So it's very interesting. Even though the film was fictional, brilliantly written, brilliantly directed, brilliantly acted, brilliantly produced. I mean, it was just a great movie, Godfather 1 and 2. But there was that touch of realism there from real life Cosa Nostra Mafia. So thought you'd you'd find that interesting. Like I said, it's the 50th anniversary of an iconic film. You know, it's funny, I was talking to my daughters about The Godfather. Some of them hadn't seen it. Would you believe it? Being my daughter and not seeing The Godfather, so I almost sit down and said, you got to see it. It's like a history lesson. It's funny how they watched it, and of course they loved it. Everybody loves the film. And if I recall, it was one of the first films that my wife and I sat down when she was, 20 years old, and I had just met her. And, we watched the film together, and she hadn't seen it prior to that also. And she loved the film. You got to love the film no matter what. So anyhow, I thought you might find that interesting on the 50th anniversary of The Godfather. So hope you're drinking Franzese wine. If you're not, you're going to be drinking it soon. I'm telling you, people are loving it, enjoying it. We're excited about it. Anything that we can do to enhance, your family gatherings, to enhance being with your friends. You got something to talk about. Great glass of wine. Hopefully you're enjoying it. So really, that's it for today. How do I always leave you? The same way, and I mean it from the heart. Be safe. Tough times we're going through now. You got to be safe. Watch your back. Watch where you're going. Be healthy. Take care of yourself. I've been working out a little bit, 70 years old. You know how much time you got left. You got to stay in shape. So be safe. Be healthy. I really do mean this. God bless you. We all need God's blessings, especially in times like this. And yes, I pray every day that I will see you next time.